And it was time for the Holy War. Who's going to win? Welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. I am so happy that you're here. All right, y'all. So today I have to talk about something that I feel like is wildly timely and not really something I really talk about ever, but there was just such a reflection that recently came to me. Um, Weirdly, during the University of Utah BYU Holy War, which we would say back then, college football game. Who would have known? Who would have known that I would reflect so much on life and just things that we face over a college football game? But let me get into it with you. So obviously, the red versus blue game, University of Utah versus BYU, is not the only red and blue that has been playing any sort of game. Okay. And I know our parents say we're not supposed to talk about at the dinner table, what is it? Politics, money, and religion. And I've already talked about a religion a little, so I guess we're throwing in politics. And although I don't want to speak anything specific, I just want to talk about the idea that we have around us being right in life. And when we pick a side, we just genuinely think that we're right and we really don't want to hear anybody else's. And I think that that's like an interesting perspective because that in everything in life, relationships, marriages, friendships, there was so much I saw that I was like, my anxiety was on like level 1200 plus. And I realized everyone just has these really strong opinions, but and I don't know the whole story of how they came to those conclusions, but it's kind of like an interesting psychological thought. And I realized that in a marriage like I was in, when two people have completely different perspectives, that's why it's just so hard if they're not open-minded at all to allowing the other person to have their own opinion or thought. And the story I'll tell is one of me cheering for the University of Utah in a bar in Tennessee. Now, let me tell you, living in Tennessee, most people, I have had so many people, I guess, tell me they've never even met anyone from Utah. So the likelihood that people really care about the University of Utah versus BYU game out here is like zero. So after the Tennessee game was over, we had the late game. I'm the only one that cared to watch it. I'm at this bar and I'm cheering on the university, my Utes, alma mater, University of Utah. Like, this is one of those games, like, this is the closest Utah has to, like, any kind of college football, really, rivalry. I mean, I've been to SEC games. It's totally different. Like, we have nothing on that in Utah. I'm sorry. We just don't. It's just not the same. But this game would have been one I wish I could have been back home for. And this is like when you were a kid, it's like you wore like the colors to school before their game weekend. Like, okay, I'm wearing my Utes, I'm wearing BYU. Like, that was a whole thing. Like, it's a huge thing. So, anyways, this game's on. I'm finally feeling like, okay, a little bit of excitement at home for my own college football team to play this big rivalry. And even though our record's awful, we're not looking good this season, I'm like, if we win any game, this is the one. We're playing at home, like we want to beat BYU, whatever. So I'm really cheering on my team. I'm really passionate, right? I'm passionate that we should win this game because I want us to win. So, because I have loyalties, because that's where that's where I got my college degree, right? So, anyways, I'm cheering for the Utes, and there's a table of people to the right of me, and they notice that I'm cheering and they watch for a minute. Well, the next thing you know, BYU scores and they start cheering. They start cheering. I can tell you that table of people did not know anything about BYU, nor were they likely had anything to do with BYU. I could tell that they just wanted to cheer against me. And not me specifically. They just wanted to cheer against whatever team I was going for because I was the only person in the bar that cared about the game. And I think about that because I've watched sports and been a sports fan my whole life growing up. My mom is like a diehard Jazz fan. And like, obviously, if you've ever been to an NBA game in Utah, like, you don't want to go if you're the other team. Like, they're just heckling you. It's an awful experience. So I hear. But what I'm saying is, people get so passionate about their team that they're, like, annoyed that anyone else could cheer for, like, I'm literally annoyed, like, those people are cheering for BYU? Like, do they even know BYU? I even, in my tequila moment, even asked them, "Hey, do you guys even know where BYU is? Do you know where it is? Have you?" They didn't know. They didn't know. They didn't know. But they still wanted to cheer for BYU, and they had every right to, without knowing a single fact or even where the school was located. They could cheer for BYU if they wanted to. But I let it bug me. I let it piss me off, actually. And but then I realized, like, why do I care? They can cheer for whoever they want. And not only that, it was just a reminder that, unfortunately, in life, people will cheer against you just to cheer against you. Like, that's real. Like, they didn't know me. I never even spoken to any of them. They just, whether it was to, like, just for the fun of it, like, there's no reason, no rhyme, just wanted to cheer against me. And I could have, like, let that ruin my whole night, which for a part of it, I was like, no, the University of Utah. Like, I'm literally in my head, like, who's this girl? I haven't had an angry feeling in a minute, but here I am trying to defend my college football team, and I'm getting annoyed at these strangers. And it seemed really silly at the end of the day. And the next day, obviously, the outcome of the game was far from what I wanted, which kind of only added to my frustration about these random strangers just cheering against me. And then, don't worry. Even during it, they kind of started reading a little bit about BYU, just that, oh, yeah, we do know Brigham Young University. Really? Really? Okay. But at the end of the day, like, this is, they have it's a free country. Everyone's allowed to have their own opinions. They can go for BYU without knowing nothing, knowing no one that went there, not even knowing where the school was. Not Nothing. They probably didn't even know it was a Mormon school or Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But they could cheer for them. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is that what I have seen over the last few weeks just really felt like a lot of our life, we think that the only possible way to being right is believing as we do. Like, everyone else out there has no clue, and we got it. We got it right. And I feel like we can think that, but sometimes we base our thoughts and then we take them as facts instead of, and I mean our thoughts and emotions, right? So our thoughts and emotions about a certain thing. Like, my thoughts are like, University of Utah is such a better school. University of Utah is this. They don't do this. Do you know what they're doing at BYU? I could think all those thoughts if I wanted. Why? I don't know. Seems like a waste of time, but I could. But, like, is it that big of a deal? I can still have my opinion, but not tell you you're wrong for yours. I could still just decide that I prefer the University of Utah, and I'm glad I didn't choose to go to the BYU without it being such a difficult conversation. I realized I wanted to be that girl at the bar that's cheering for my team and paid no bother to the random strangers that wanted to cheer against me. Because I think at the end of the day, like, that's the strength in having your own opinions, your own thoughts about things, but not allowing the external noise of other people telling you you're wrong or saying this or trying to force their thoughts on you change you from what you believe. Now, at the end of the day, like, if these people actually liked BYU and they would have told me like a million good reasons why I should go for BYU, I'm the first to listen, but I know that my loyalty lied for me where I went, right? And sometimes those loyalties are just too much to overturn with other people's facts. Most of the time when people pick a side, pick a football team, pick a color, the outside noise of everyone else isn't going to change their mind. And especially not the negative, like forceful, you shouldn't like them because X, Y, and Z. It's like the sit down conversations with your partner when you say, hey, I see that you see it that way, but here's where I'm coming from. What are your thoughts on that? And sometimes it's like, oh, I I still don't see it that way, but I respect your opinion. I don't know if that seems too grown up for most people anymore. And I hope I'm wrong and that that isn't true. That some of us can just realize that we all don't think the same way because we all were raised differently. We all had different experiences. We all have different loyalties. We all have different priorities and things that are important to us and to our families and to our friends. And so we make up our decisions about what we want from life or what we see as purposeful or what we see as a priority or meaningful based on our own experiences. And then we try to like project like, this is how you should feel too, because these were my experiences and this is the conclusion I came to and it has to be right. Like, I'm sorry. I forgot. Everyone doesn't have to feel like me. Everyone doesn't have to think like me. Everyone doesn't have to have the exact same opinions and emotions about the things that I do. It's wild. And I realized that every experience that we go into, and that's why they say there's three sides to every story, like yours, mine, and the truth. Because I may see things one way and you see things another. And then there's somewhere in the middle where we both have some facts about the situation. And yet we get really hung up on trying to convince other people to view the story the way we do. I think about that also, and it reminded me that I have to let go of knowing that the story that I have in my head about why I left my life, my previous life, is going to be immensely different than the story from the man that I left. That's hard for me sometimes. And I am working so hard to let that go. I know that we don't see eye to eye on why it ended the way it did. And that, I guess, has really been the piece that's opened my eyes to so many of the other things I've realized as I work to get the messy girl out of me. Because I started this podcast, Wandering the Wild Mess, because all I felt about myself and my life was that I didn't know what I was doing and I'm an absolute mess and everything's chaotic and I'm doing everything for the plot. And the closer I get to healing, the less I'm accepting the messy girl. So when I got annoyed by this group of strangers cheering against me, the next day I woke up like, yeah, I don't really like how that girl was. I don't really like how she cared so much about strangers not cheering for the same team as her. And I think when you start to wake up to life, realizing that everyone is not going to view things like you do, that people are going to cheer against you for no reason, that not everyone on this planet will love you for who you are or support you. It's just not how it works. As someone that's like a people pleaser and wants to be liked by people, I realize like I can't be liked by everyone because that's just not how life works. And that sucks. Like, because I'm like, come on, what? I don't like that. I mean, even saying it out loud, I'm like, gosh, gee, really? And I see all these people show up and they're like, I don't care. I love myself and I don't care. And I'm like, gosh, how cool is that? But like, it's kind of rude. It kind of sounds rude. Like you don't care about people. But then I'm like, it's not that you don't care about people. It's that you can't control how other people feel. You can't control what things what things matter to other people, right? Like if they matter to them and they don't matter to you, there's just differences. Maybe me being messy is more likable because being messy means I don't have it figured out, which I don't still, even though I'm trying to clean up messes. But being messy just feels a little bit easier for people to like laugh with and relate with and that. But I feel like at the end of the day, we all want to not feel like what kind of idiot was I last night the next day. I feel like there's not one person that's like, I'm so glad I felt like an idiot last night and looks at their phone in the morning and they're like, what? I feel like the mornings that you don't have to do that, you're like, yes, feeling good. Literally, give me $1,000,000. I'm like the coolest thing that ever happened to this planet because I don't have to worry about what text I sent or what I did or who I called or what I said after a couple shots of tequila. It's just a vibe. I mean, all of us universally can agree that no one likes to feel like the next morning that they're like, does everyone hate me? What did I do? And I felt like I hadn't seen that messy AF me in a minute. Probably was only like a week because I went to the Vols game when they beat Kentucky and ended up at Waffle House at 2 a.m. So, like, probably may or may not have video FaceTime people at 2 a.m. unnecessarily. If you were one of them, I'm so sorry. But I'm not saying I'm clean yet. I'm just cleaning up. I'm cleaning up. And that was a big self-reflection for me. So with everything going on in the world, if you're feeling like I get that if you just don't want to hear something from people, set your boundaries, right? Like if you don't like how it makes you feel, by all means, you don't have to be friends with everybody. But like sometimes people that make you feel good in their life, people that you want to be around, if you have a difference in opinion about something, I don't think it has to be the end all be all unless you want it to be. If you can really see that people make their decisions based on their own experiences, emotions, thoughts, feelings, and those are all not going to be the same as yours. They're just not. People live different lives. Newsflash, it's weird. I know. It's weird. And I think it's great to just be able to have people in your life you can have that dialogue with. I have friends who have strong opinions on both sides of the, should I say the word, political party realm. Very strong opinions. And I keep mine to myself, not because I don't want to care about things, but because my priorities and focus is different. I don't even know, can I say that? I mean, but it's true. I guess I can just say my truth. And that's what we're all learning. In order to meet the right people that need to be in your life, to have the best experience in life where we're not like fighting strangers on the internet or like throwing the stuffing because that's the best part of Thanksgiving at the dinner table. Like maybe we should just be like, yeah, Jimmy has his opinion and so does Aunt Grace, and we're good. And I don't know. I can tell you that next time, if this happens again, I probably should just have ordered a round of shots for the BYU fans. And if they took it, then I know they probably didn't go to BYU. They probably didn't ever go to BYU. And I wouldn't even had to ask because they remember Mormons don't drink. So I should just buy them a round of shots and then see. And then if they are, then I get the shots back. It's like a win-win, you know? So anyways, that was my story of the Utes. I just wanted to bring this a little bit light to all of the heaviness that a lot of people were feeling on one side and the joy on the other. Like, we won. I mean, not the Utes. I mean, would I want to see someone driving around like, woo, BYU won? Thank goodness I wasn't in Salt Lake. Well, I would have had to been in Provo. I don't want to talk about the game with someone. We should have won, but we didn't. But that's just my opinion. And the weird thing is, like, an opinion can not really be wrong or right because it's just an opinion. It's not like a fact. It's not like a scientific, like, here is the results. So as you're navigating all the things, whether you're cheering because your team won or you're over it because your team lost, life is going to be full of times where things will work out and things will work out differently than you had hoped. But they'll always work out in your own life. They will. So I have to give one more little because I love this because this, like I said, this showed me how messy I was by me getting that annoyed. I mean, I'm sure the tequila didn't help, but come on, Heather, you can only blame tequila for so many instances in your life. At some point, you just need to get it together. So I read this today, my favorite book, and it says the way you impulsively react shows you cope or defend yourself in the past, or shows how you coped and defended yourself in the past. If you are stuck in a defensive mode, your mind will view things through the fearful lens of survival. The key to arriving in the present and breaking with the past is to slow down, breathe, think, and then act. Instead of me getting all like, oh, why are they going for BYU? They don't even know who they're at. I could just be like, not everyone's going to root for your team, Heather, and that's okay. And then carry on with my night. Cheering for my Utes, win or lose. That would have been like the healed Heather. But the messy one's still sticking around and she's like, okay, I'm going to like make a scene. But never again. Don't quote me, but kind of quote me. Kind of like hold my feet to the fire. I mean, I don't know who you are, but yeah. So in life, just know we're going to make messes. We're going to try to clean them up. We're going to figure it all out. But just give people some grace. I mean, I'm sure they had some reason to cheer against me. And that's going to happen throughout my life. That was the hard pill to swallow. That was really the takeaway. Is that when you're someone who's a people pleaser and just want people to see you for who you genuinely are and be like, I'm a kind person. What? Why are you cheering against me? Like, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. You just have to let people be who they are, and then you can have them. You can let what they do and say bother you, or you don't. I should have been unbothered. I didn't know how to do that. But now it's shown me the lesson of, okay, Heather, let's stop all that. So let's give a little more grace, understanding, and just genuinely know that nothing outside of you really matters that much. I don't care that they went for BYU. Go BYU. So proud of you. My day goes on. Life goes on. This is what we got. The game is over. Tomorrow's a new day. This was Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. You matter.